This past week, Lee and I met with our financial planning retirement people, and basically we do that so that we can have a constructive conversation about money. We've gotten way better in these years of our marriage, but it's still something that we just come at from very different places. He's a numbers guy. He's, balance things. He just looks at it differently than I do, and I am more creative about how I look at it, and we've figured out how to manage it together over these years. But there's always different ways that we've come about it. Partly because we're very different people. He joked when we got together that I was God, he was Mammon, and we've come at our marriage from different angles, as people do. Our families dealt with money differently, but in some ways they had the same thing, that they didn't really talk about it. And I think that's a pretty universal Midwestern, middle class experience. I was talking to my kids recently, and they said, oh, they talk about their salaries all the time with their friends, that there's nothing about it. They seem to have a different relationship with money and each other than people do in our age, right? Well, this series that we're embarking on is helping us look at what are the stories that we grew up with? What are the feelings and emotions around money, which is, as I learned in junior high, just a commodity for trading to get something else that you want. Meanwhile, we've all put a lot of meaning around it, and we don't really tend to talk about it in church. We don't tend to talk about it really that much with our friends and that sort of thing, or even maybe in our families. But Jesus did talk to people about money. They asked him questions, he answered questions, he talked to them about money, because our relationship to money is part of our spiritual growth, our spiritual path. Having peace around something as opposed to being very anxious or fearful about something just points us in the direction that this is something that we could work through with our faith perspectives. So I do want to put in a little pitch for our small groups that are going to be starting this week. It's just 3 weeks. You can come to the morning session from 10:30 to 11:30, or from 6 to 7 p.m. And if you are not already on our emails, go ahead and send us a message through Facebook, or go to our website, edwards-ucc.org, and send us an email there, and we will get the information to you so you can join with us. This is not just for members. This is for anybody who wants to improve their relationship with money in the context of their faith. It's interesting that this series would come together on All Saints Sunday for me, and what I was thinking about was our saints this year who have died, who have been part of our church for a very long time, very involved in our church, maybe not recently, maybe years ago, some of them up until March. But these are all people who invested their time, their money into this congregation and into their faith, which leads me back more than 180 years. That has been at the core of who our congregation is. And while we may have our feelings about the power that surrounds money, or maybe we might have a history of not enough money. In my case, I was raised kind of with the idea that money was kind of evil and dirty and bad, and that if you had it, it came from somewhere not good. Some of you grew up with generational wealth that has a very different feeling for you. But whoever these people were all along the path, they saw an opportunity to build their faith and to have a relationship with money that allowed them to also grow their faith. And it's not to say if you don't have money, you can't have faith, because I think that's some of that's the opposite. Historically, the research has shown that the people with the smallest incomes proportionately give the largest amount of money to charities and things that are important to them. And I don't have all the answers. I don't pretend to have all the answers at this point, but I do offer an opportunity for myself and all of us who are participating and hearing this message today, that we can improve our relationship with our faith and have God help us with an area in our life that maybe lives in the shadows of our life, that's maybe some underlying fear. For those who have lost jobs, or their employment has changed drastically, or there are big needs in your family situation which are impinging upon your day-to-day living. These are things that everybody deals with at some point or another in their life, and could be something that's happening now. Throughout the course of the history of the church, this has been the case as well. And I learned in the process of preparing last year for one of our anniversary years that our church went bankrupt in the I believe it was right around the 1900s. There was a downturn in the economy, and the church had taken out a loan for the building, and they couldn't pay it. It was originally called First Congregational, and the church closed. But the congregation of people stayed together, and eventually they built a new church a little bit up. I think it was on Perry Street or something. And they named it Edwards Congregational Church. So there are ways in which people can grow in their faith and learn more about the things that they're afraid of. And if money and the lack of money, or worrying about not enough money, is something that you worry about, I invite you to join us on this small group study for some peace around that issue. And I would also just invite you to remember the saints who have gone before us and gone before you in your own life. Maybe you have loved ones in your life that you are particularly remembering today on All Saints, and reflect on what they have given you. What is the heritage that they left with you? And perhaps it's faith, perhaps it's peace of mind, perhaps it was community. But we are all enriched by those who have gone before us, and today especially we remember that.